So
You ready?
it's been a never-ending battle for me this past
I
week.
gotta get me a gavel.
I can't keep up.
Guys, we'll go ahead and get started at 5:59. Everybody's good with it. I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular business meeting for the month of January. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Welcome guests and staff, and welcome Randy Ollis. He was unable to be here for our regular December meeting. Glad to have y'all. We'll go ahead and get started. The adoption of the agenda. Everybody had a chance to look over the agenda. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. All right, public comment, Mr. Danny McIntosh. Talk about website/water.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors, town staff. Appreciate y'all being here and coming out on such a cool January evening. I have an observation that I made here one time and never saw any result from that, but the town's website, it's a great website, but it does not have access to the city's ordinances on it. And I wish it did. I'll leave that at that. The other subject is water, and I seem like I talk a lot about water, but it's important. I think it very well may be the most important thing facing y'all today. And I see that you're gonna have a workshop next week, and I think that's a great thing. Depending on my circumstances, I might even come and listen in. But my encouragement to each of you is that if you have not physically visited things like the waste treatment plant at Michaelville or at Pine Swamp, I don't know how many of you may have ever been to the left or right-hand intake on Bowling Street, or even to the water plant. But I would encourage you to make a trip sometime. Maybe not weather like this, but sometime soon. In the springtime maybe, because I think it would be a help. It's hard to realize what a resource you have on Bowling Street. Not to mention Cane River. I mean, that's great. That's what's sustaining us at this point. But I think that you've got to become really conversant about your water and sewer. How many gallons a day you can produce, when the state's going to force you to find another resource, what's actually going on at your waste treatment plants. Think about how that affects things downstream. There's just so much, and it is a big deal. And I appreciate y'all's willingness to work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. All right, moving on to item number 3, consideration of minutes. Everyone had a chance to look through their packet and from the December 2nd special meeting and regular meeting.
I make a motion we approve the minutes for December.
Second. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, no public hearings scheduled for tonight. Is that right, Chad?
That's correct.
All right, item number 5, presentations. God, as much as it hurts me, I'm gonna have to recognize Kim. You know, we have a long history, just kidding. Obviously, we're cousins and very close at that. But Kim has served on the planning board from March of 2015 through December of 21. She was the chair from 18 to 21, and she went off at the end of January. And we got Miss Kimberly a plaque. It says, presented to Kimberly Simpson, appreciation for your service to the town of Burnsville Planning Board, March 2015 through December 2021.
What's those rabbit ears about?
right, that leads us to Miss Sharon for the audit presentation.
I just about got a complex. I thought you were introducing me as an item of paying you, so. Instead of an audit.
No.
Okay. I am Sharon Gillespie. I have been working on your audit now for several years. Have a CPA firm over in Spruce Pine. We've recently relocated to an office on 19 East, so I'm over there. If anyone starts looking for me, I'm not disappeared from Oak Avenue. I'm still in business. It's a pleasure to be here, and we really appreciate the relationship we've had over the years with the town and the ability to do your audit. I won't go over this whole 75 pages as much as it pains me not to, not to do so, but I do want to hit a few of the highlights of your audit and tell you a little bit about what we did and how this document is organized. To start off, the document you have in front of you, the audit report, the main part of this report is your audit opinion. But everything else is part of your financial position that you talk about at each board meeting. It's just laid out in a little bit different manner than what you're accustomed to seeing. And the way this is organized, the Local Government Commission tells us exactly how we have to present this. And it goes from very broad to very specific. So at the front of the document, you see items lumped together, like every expense for general government. But then toward the back, you start to see more specific things like salaries and wages for town center or for the police department. So you start to see really specific items toward the back. But to make this easier to read, they came up several years ago with management's discussion and analysis, and that starts on page 8 of your audit report. And what this is, it takes everything that is in the audit and it consolidates it into just 4 or 5 pages, so you don't have to necessarily go through the whole 70 to 100 page document. Page 8, these bullets, financial highlights. Here, the assets of Burnsville exceeded the liabilities at the close of the year by $12 million. So, in other words, you owned more than you owed to the tune of $12 million. And that includes your buildings, equipment, and everything consolidated. The net position increased by $615,000 for the current year. So that would be your paper book profit. Certainly not how much your cash in the bank increased or anything, but there's some accounting things that go into that make your profit for the year $615,000. The third bullet, at the close of the current year, the town's government funds reported combined fund balance of $2.1 million, a decrease of $1 million in comparison with the prior year. So if I was just a person reading this, I would immediately say, what's going on with this third bullet? We decreased $1 million, but what happened there is last year in 2020, you got the loan for the fire department. You spent a lot of it in 2021. So in 2020, the fund balance went up by that loan amount, and in 2021, it came back down when you spent it. So there's no cause for alarm because of that. But you're looking here at 2 different ways of accounting. These first 2 bullets are what's called a full accrual method. It's as if you were running the town of Burnsville as a business, the whole town. So you look at items like depreciation, how much you could potentially owe for retirement benefits, for health care benefits. You're looking at the big picture. The third bullet is a current resource method. And that's what you're more concerned with as a council because you're looking at the dollars that came in 1 year and how you can use those dollars in that year to provide services for the citizens. So really, when you're doing your budgets and when you're doing everything, you're looking at the current flow financial statements. And those actually start, and I won't go in detail of those, but those start at Exhibit 3. So the one, of course, there's always a oddity, and the oddity with governmental accounting is that a water and sewer fund always has to be looked at like it's a business. So you're running that to break even or even make a profit so you can put your surplus away for future projects. So water and sewer doesn't follow that current flow method. it's always going to be presented on full accrual. So this document just meshes all those methods together and is probably very confusing, but we are required to put it this way. If you look at this third bullet, it says approximately 66% of the total of your fund balance is available for spending. So a lot of times people will say, or boards will say, what's a good fund balance? Or what should we have in our fund balance? And the rule of thumb is you don't ever want to get to an 8% or below fund balance. Because if you do that, local government commission will actually come in and want to take over your finances because you're not managing the way they want you to manage the funds. 66% is close to average for small towns the size of Burnsville. If you're ever interested in how Burnsville stacks up with other towns of similar population, which is a grouping of towns 1,000 to 2,500 populations, you can look on the local government commission website, and there are all kinds of charts and tables that will put Burnsville in comparison with everyone else to see how does your tax rate look, how does your fund balance look, how does your debt to income ratio look. So there are all kinds of statistics that you can see how you're doing financially compared to other towns within North Carolina. But just to look at a couple of these exhibits, if you turn to page 18, I mentioned we have the two methods of accounting, and page 18 is your balance sheet, or government's call it a statement of net position. It is the big picture of everything you own and everything you owe. So there at the bottom of the page where I mentioned the $12 million, if you take all your buildings, land, everything you have in the bank, everything that anyone owed you, and you take away everything you owe as far as the bond payments, any debt, any potential retirement and health studies as far as benefits you might owe out for that, in theory, you will be left with $12 million. Now, in theory, that is not really a good way to say it, because who is going to buy your town hall for its book value? Who is going to buy your police cars for their book value? So, you know, just because it's the paper shuffle that shows that it's worth $12 million, you know, realistically, you probably couldn't sell all your stuff and come out with $12 million if Burnsville closed its doors for whatever reason. If you'll turn to page 21, this is one of the major focal points that the boards are usually looking at. This is your statement of revenue changes and changes in fund balance. And what it does is take the general fund and tell you everything that came in and everything that went out. So you can see for the year, it was a pretty good year as far as general fund, 2.4 million in, as opposed to 2.1 million last year, and that change was because you did have some additional COVID funding. Expenses were 1.9 and were 1.9 last year. The major capital projects fund here, the fire department, anytime you spend more than a certain dollar amount, the accounting standards make us put that in a separate column so you can see exactly what's happening with that little pot of money. So you can see where the big part of your loss came from. If you look, you only took in a few dollars as far as revenue, and that was interest income and maybe a donation, but then you spent out all this money on construction. So that was the reason for your big decrease in your overall fund balance. If you go over to page 25, the previous page didn't address your water and sewer fund at all, and because it's treated as a proprietary or a business type fund, we do put that on a separate schedule on its own. So you can see your total operating revenues for the year were 2.4 million. Your operating expenses were 2.5 million for a deficit here in the middle of the page of 188,000. That's really consistent with last year. Last year's audit showed 186,000. So the revenues and expenses are hand in hand. The one thing that varies on this schedule is when you get those grants and you spend them back out on the water and sewer line projects. And those actually come in at the bottom of this page. So you can see this year you had capital contributions $517,000. And when you throw that into the mix, you actually had an increase in your water fund for the year of $321. So very consistent as far as operations and operating expenses. The variable is how much money you get in each year for those capital projects and how much you spend back out. One other page, and it's toward the back, page 67. This is important for your consideration because this tells you how much money you have to work with. This is your tax collection rate. And if that rate starts to fall, that means that your money in the bank is less and you don't have as much to work with. So we always pay particular attention to this page. Your overall tax collection rate was 98.14. That's compared with 98.47 the prior year, so very consistent with the 2 years. Statewide, the range for small towns ranged from 85% to 99%. So you're certainly at the very upper level of the small town collections. So that speaks well of your tax collection department for getting the money in here. Overall, we had no findings. We had a few suggestions that are in the management letter at the back of your document. And we usually put that loose, not as part of the bound document, because normally it just belongs to you. This is not sent to any granting agency. This is just for you as a board to use for recommendations. So there were no findings, but under the second page, other matters, there was a new accounting standard that I actually didn't even think about it affecting the towns, or I would have helped you be more aware of it. But basically it says that the fines and forfeitures that you collect and send to the Board of Education has to have its own separate fund. It's money in and out. You don't get to decide how to spend it, but the new standard says you have to have that as a separate fund, special revenue fund. So I had to write that up, not as a violation, but just as a reminder that it needed to be set up and budgeted for. The next item down, OPEB and pension funding. This is, I know you've been setting aside some monies for the various OPEB and pension liabilities, and normally those probably should be in a really specific trust, and I think Heather did research on that and is working on trying to get all that fixed.
We'd like to see anybody else our size or anybody else in the state of North Carolina that has.
Yeah, I don't think, I've not heard of anybody in the state who's actually been proactive enough to set aside the money, so it's great that you're doing it, but nobody has any guidance.
Right.
But the third underlined part here, depreciation expense. Our auditing standards have changed so much that we used to be able to do a lot of accounting type services instead of auditing type services for our clients. And one of the things that we've always done for you guys is keep up with your depreciation expense on your equipment. So we've been tracking it, and telling you each year how much to depreciate. Well, they're telling us not to do that anymore. They're telling us as auditors, we're supposed to come in and look at your records, not help you provide your records. So I mentioned to Leslie a couple of types of software that she might purchase to start tracking the depreciation. And we can actually give her all our old work that tracks everything you already own, and she can put it into a system at some point and start tracking it. So that's a recommendation to have that tracked in some way. And the last one here is the one that we normally always talk about, is just segregation of duties. Just be aware that you're entrusting a couple of people with all the finances, and make sure that you ask questions on a regular basis and stay involved in the finances. But as I said, none of those are findings as far as local government commission sees findings, but they are just recommendations from us. So, does anyone have any questions for me? I know it's confusing and boring, and I just can't do any better with it.
What I will tell you is, that's the sixth one of those I went through, and that was the most concise one I've ever seen.
Oh, okay, good. My last one said, can you get finished in 10 minutes, so I've kind of got it down to it.
You laid it out there. I mean, we gotta read it a little more, but.
Thank Thank you very much,
Okay,
Sharon.
thank you. And if anyone runs into a question, just feel free to call the office. We'll be there a lot this time of year, so someone will know. Okay?
Thanks, Sharon.
The first day.
All right, stream restoration at the maintenance shed, Mr. Jonathan Hartzell with Blue Ridge Resource Conservation and Development.
Hello, everyone. Happy 2022. Thanks for inviting me to talk about this opportunity to work on this stream. As most of you are probably familiar with, by the maintenance shed here on this map, the red line is where Mitchell Branch is currently culverted. And there's two pictures on either end that show some sinkholes there that are a problem. So this gives us an opportunity to do several things. You could replace some pipes, put them back the way they are, or that you could open up a stream and daylight it, as it's called. And that would have a lot of benefits to help alleviate flooding. It would also help aquatic passage for fish and other critters that live in the stream. And we can help by helping with grant funding, which would basically, hopefully.
Jonathan, if you don't mind, I don't know if the board knows, but maybe Heather can get them up to date on what FEMA said and therefore
sure.
the reason that we went with you, because they were only wanting to fix a small portion. I'll let Heather explain further, but.
Yeah, so FEMA basically has told us on this particular project that what they will do is pay to put back what was there exactly as it was. So what was there was, what's the dimensions, Shane? 48? 48 inch metal, corrugated metal piping, which is kind of outdated for what anybody would do today. This was put in probably a little over 20 years ago. And we look at the places where the sinkholes opened up, and obviously the pipe is completely ruined there. It doesn't look like there's much to connect to new section 2.
Yeah, they were just wanting to replace the sections
The
where the actual
sections,
sinkhole
yes.
was, put that joint of pipe on. Now, what's the lineal footage on it, Jonathan?
I think it's around 600
About
feet.
600 lineal feet, and they were only talking about maybe 2 joints of pipe. So you're gonna have two new joints of pipe and 560 feet of rusted pipe.
And we had an engineer look at the project to sort of right size it, upsize it, and put in a 60-inch pipe that was made of high density material, not the metal that rusts. It lasts a lot longer, but the price of that project for replacing all of it was around $150,000. FEMA, to get us back to original where we were, is looking at about $28,000. So obviously there's a huge shortfall between the difference there. And, you know, FEMA does have some mitigation money, but then we would have to get hydraulic studies done and things like that. And Russell had mentioned Jonathan and the work he does, and his firm does on daylighting streams and opening them back up. We don't use the property for anything. I think Brian can attest to the fact most all of it is in a floodway. So it's not something we can build something on, not even a parking lot, I don't think, at that level.
So that's town property on the south end of it?
It is. Where the red line is, that's town owns all that. Yeah. So, Shane, you got anything to add
That's
on?
pretty much got it covered. I mean, we just don't have the money to go in between there for the 150,000 versus the roughly 30 that we might get from FEMA. So we're just looking at other possibilities.
And FEMA has indicated, and I mean, I'd love to see something in writing, but in our weekly calls with them, they have indicated that the amount of money that they would pledge towards the project, or we could use towards the project, we can still accept that amount of money and use it towards the project. So roughly 28 to 30,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's kind of-
So this stream daylighting, we would just continue the river, the stream down, and not have any pipe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jonathan
Okay.
can hit.
Okay.
There's another
Oh, sorry.
slide, share. Yeah, so you basically open up the creek and restore it to its natural dimension, pattern, and profile. And one requirement for these grants that we're going after is it has to have a vegetated buffer on either side. And so this hashed out, I guess that's green, whatever color that is. That would be what the vegetated area would look like. And we did this upstream at Raycourt Park with a similar grant. I don't know if you've seen up above the main shelter there, but we restored the creek there. And we've done other similar projects in Mitchell County and the other counties we serve. So we have experience getting these grants and working with contractors to do this type of work.
Jonathan, is there, I mean, I know there's requirements, but inside that buffer area, is there any leniency on maintaining that buffer? You know, as far as like, I know they don't really want it mowed and personally, I wouldn't want to see it look like a jungle.
Right,
Because I would like, you know, if we were going to go this way, I'd like for it to be, you know, kind of like a park that people could walk and, you know, use.
Yeah, definitely, they will work with you at allowing you like access points and like park benches and different things like that, as long as the majority of it's vegetated and it's protecting their investment, their money, so that's the main thing. But yeah, they'll work with you on that. And it has to be in either a conservation easement or a restricted covenant. In this case, if y'all decide to do it, it'd probably be a restricted covenant. Because we're working at Mayland on the main campus, and they're doing the same thing, putting that corridor into a restricted covenant.
Do we get some kind of say or control? I mean, is there a list of, when you talk about your vegetables, your plantings, things like that, I mean, can you choose rhododendrons, flowering things, things that look nice, or?
Yeah, it's really just a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
We invite them over to look at it, and we pitch what we want and see what they say. And I mean, it's a negotiation, but in the end, you probably get what you want.
And from a regulatory standpoint, I'll let you hit on it, you're the expert. But if we were to decide to go back with, you know, 60-inch pipe, we don't know that this was ever permitted in the beginning, and that we could get into some,
You could dig up some stuff you don't want to dig up.
Right.
Skeletons.
It's
I mean, anytime you're piping that much live water, I know
Yeah.
that there's a lot of red tape.
That branch carries a lot of water if we get a high water time.
It does, and I went to Raycourt during these past major floods when those sinkholes happened, and it never left the banks of the creek, but, I mean, of course, the street was flooded, that was all the runoff from the street and parking lots. And
Right.
roofs, but it's a pretty wide area of floodplain. It would help downstream landowners, it would help downstream flooding on the road.
Would it help with stormwater runoff? I mean, is there a way to design it?
Oh,
to
yeah,
help that?
sorry about that. And here's a potential opportunity, this little yellow circle is where a stormwater BMP or best management practice could be installed that could capture runoff from the streets above it. So that could also help with runoff for the town.
Would you mind to explain to the board your possible funding sources and
Sure,
that
sure,
sort
there's-
of thing?
Yes, sir. There's 3 potential grants, 2 are state grants. One's the NC Land and Water Fund, that's one that requires the permanent protection. One's through the North Carolina Division of Water Resources called the Water Resources Infrastructure Grant. And then one potential one is with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Partners for Fish and Wildlife Record. One of those grants is due February 1st of this year. And you would find out later this year. Another grant is due in the spring, and you'd find out later this year. So if you chose to pursue these grants, construction would start early next year, should those grants be awarded. And I'm pretty confident they would. Both these funding agencies have a lot of money this year from the state budget, and it's a good project. It's continuing work we've done upstream in Rayport. So it would score quite well.
And you had mentioned to me, you would need to talk to the one adjoining property owner about the tie-in back into the stream, because it's daylighted past that property all the way down.
That's correct, yeah. So
But you don't think that we would need some type of an easement, just permission to
No,
work in
just,
the area?
yeah, letter of, permission.
What are the percentage on those particular grants, Jonathan? Are they?
The one state's 1-to-1, and the land and water, it's negotiable, but it's usually like 60-40. So I think it could work out that the town wouldn't have to pay any money. Of course, some in-kind match would make it look better for like maintenance and construction oversight, even education. We could incorporate a lot of these grants, like education, incorporate into them some signage or something like that.
You have those at Rayport, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, does any board members have any questions for Jonathan? I guess we have to make a motion to let him pursue this if that's the.
If that's the route that the board wants to go, I mean, he's got right out of mind.
Obviously, we got a deadline on that one for sure.
I think it's a great idea. I especially like the idea of making it sort of greenway, little park.
Well, it's not used
Maybe
for
a-
anything. I mean,
Yeah.
guys, Shane's put guys, it takes a long time to mow it as it is. I mean,
Yeah.
probably gonna cut the mowing down a little bit, possibly, but it's, I mean, Brian, do we even park there for the craft fairs? Cause it's,
Last several years, they've used, last year I don't think they used it at all. I think the last year we had the crash fair, before that, because we skipped a year, there was a few vendors that parked up there, but it's been very limited for many years, so we didn't use it all.
It doesn't sound like there's any downside. I make a motion that we go with that.
I'll second it. I think it's a great idea.
all in favor?
Ah,
There you go. All right, green light.
Well, thank you for your time, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. See ya.
See you, bud.
all right, moving on to Miss
Hockaday's report.
Me,
It's long.
it's shorter this month. It's shorter this month. I don't have a lot to update on the FEMA process, because the past 2 weeks we have not had our weekly meetings with Ryan. But, you know, just to say that they are moving, I think we have 5 projects in total. They're moving 4 of them through a pathway to make us a fixed cost, proposition, I guess. And then one of them, the Azalea Lane culvert, will go on sort of a main stream track, which would allow us, if there's a situation where they get in there and dig it up and find that there's more work than they anticipated or could see needs to be done, we could get additional funding. It's my understanding that once they do get to the point of making that fixed cost proposal, we'll have 30 days y'all will have 30 days whether to accept it or reject it. If you reject it, all the projects just go back into the regular, moving down the line, the chain of money funnel, and become standard projects like the Azalea Lane project will be. You know, I think that takes a longer period of time to get some funding, and I think most of these projects we feel pretty good about the estimates that we've been given on the repair work. There'll be at FEMA fund 75% in the state of North Carolina, which I think is the only state in the United States will pick up the cost for the other 25%. So that's a good thing. Bicycle and pedestrian planning grant. I got an email finally from Raleigh, from DOT, and they are still working on the contract between the vendor that they chose to be our consultant and them. And so I don't have that yet, but they did advise us to start putting together a steering committee, and they sort of gave Chad a list of the types of people you would want on the steering committee, one of which is a counselor. So I need a voluntold, someone to volunteer to be on we're looking at you, Denise.
I'll do it.
On the steering committee.
I'll do it.
You're currently on the
Is it the RTO?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it kind of goes together,
It kind of
yes.
goes together, and I think it's gonna be a good process. And I think it's gonna help us with some other grant funding that we'll be looking at this year. Dogwood Health Trust, ARPA Advantage Grant update, just letting y'all know the county got the money. I have seen a picture of the check, so it did come.
Heather, can I back you up just a second?
Yeah.
On the pedestrian part, the 3 crosswalks right between App Java and the Skillet
Yeah,
at night is a wreck. Look at that, for somebody to get killed. And I don't know if maybe lighting it's a little bit, I'd probably ask Brian to come in to what he would think about that, but me looking at it, it scares me.
okay.
And the thing that gets you is all the little kids, because they're darting out between all the parked cars, and it's so dark through there, and I don't know if we could get French Broad to light that up a little better, or
The problem we've run into in the past is that's DOT.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say.
so we've already been down that road.
We've been down that road numerous times with all kinds of ideas. We wanted to put sort of a little landing median sort of thing in between, and I think we have one that has the little flashing light done it.
Right.
One, yeah, that's.
But
warning light.
What about
they
just,
just will not let us put anything.
what about just some lighting as far as French
Well,
Broad light or something?
That was
That's,
approached in the past too, and we went nowhere. I don't know about maybe looking at it again, but DOT was pretty hesitant to do anything with that area.
yeah,
Ask them if they're gonna pay for the rent. If
yeah.
somebody's young and gets killed.
But hey, we will reach back out to them, and through this process, that'll be something.
Thank you.
No, we'll make
Thank you.
try something. Going back to the Dogwood Health Trust, the money has come to the county. Lynn has the contracts for both the water and sewer GIS mapping from High Country for them to start that process. And I talked to her today, and she's gonna get those signed. So hopefully this year they can get started with that mapping. And then we'll be meeting, with the ABC Director, Jamie McMahon, to discuss the different RFPs there was 400,000 out of that amount for Randy and Bill, y'all weren't here, I'm sorry. There was 400,000 for different studies about infrastructure and for the mapping, for GIS mapping for their water lines. So we're gonna be working on the RFPs for those, RFQs for engineering services, and try to get that ball rolling real soon. Has anybody got any questions about that grant? That's no match money from Dogwood Health Trust. So that's-
The amount of grant?
the amount of grant was 2.5 million.
Wow.
$400,000 was going towards these studies and the mapping, and then another 2.1 is gonna be put into a fund at the county to fund future water or infrastructure extension, somewhere when we identify through the studies where that's most likely to happen. The next two items have to do with ARPA money. So Leslie and I have been studying hard with the school government, trying to figure out what exactly all the hoops are that we have to jump through to be able to spend not only our direct funding, but we think some of the funding that has come to the county from the state that will then pass through to us for some of the projects we're going to be doing requires you to comply with all the federal guidelines. So there's two things that I need you to consider. The first of which is authorizing an increase in the micro purchase threshold. So currently, the federal micro purchase threshold, and that is you can purchase goods, services, or construction for $10,000 or less without going through some type of a formal bidding process. We are allowed under the state or under the federal regulations to increase that amount if you all pass this resolution up to our state levels. Their state levels are higher than that. It's $30,000 for construction and up to construction and up to $50,000 for engineering services, or up to $50,000 for other services like accounting services, because we're going to have to go through a process in selecting our auditor that shows we followed the federal guidelines too. So right off the bat, that's somewhere that having this micro purchase threshold raised will help us not have to jump through as many hoops. I think we're all real satisfied with our auditing services. So anyway, you guys have a resolution in your packet to increase that amount, and I would ask that you give us a motion and a resolution, or a motion to approve that resolution.
I make the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Okay, and moving along with getting our ducks in a row to be able to spend some of this ARP money is a amendment to our written town procurement policy. In I think June of 2020, we adopted a written procurement policy which sets up, establishes rules by how we procure anything at different dollar levels, from goods, services, or construction. The federal government has their own rules that have to be followed if you're going to spend in full or in part any of their funds towards a project. And so what I've done is prepared an amendment to the policy that captures all of those federal rules that we'll have to follow. And in most cases, those rules are more restrictive, which the federal grants or loans always require you to follow whatever's most restrictive, and the federal rules are generally more restrictive than our state rules or our local rules, because our local rules follow the state's rules. So I would ask for a motion to amend the personnel policy, not the personnel policy, I'm sorry, the procurement policy to make the addition of these federal requirements for any procurement.
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay. EDA Competitive Tourism Grant Update. This is a grant that Jamie McMahon and the Chamber of Commerce brought to our attention along with Forest Service. They are, I think the county is actually going to apply for the grant, but part of the grant would be to develop a downtown streetscape and a greenway for the town of Burnsville. A plan, not actually doing one of these things, but to develop a plan to eventually be able to have those things. And I just wanted to give you, if Jamie was here, he could give you a whole lot more information about it, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. I think it's due at the end of this month, and Phil True with the High Country Council of Governments is working on the grant. There's other pieces, a greenway system in the county, some, a certain type of management plan that the Forest Service is interested in would be part of it. These are very competitive, but they're sort of put out there to help communities deal with resiliency for any other things like pandemics that come along, being prepared for those things. So I thought it was an interesting opportunity for us to get some more plans ready for some of these potential projects, you know, should funding become available down the line. So if y'all have any questions about that, I'll try to answer them, but it's a federal grant, and I believe the county will be the applicant. G is Brian's thing. The police department applies every year for a grant from the Governor's Crime Prevention Fund, and in the past, the former mayor had been authorized to sign any documents related to those grants, and now, since we have a new mayor, we need somebody else to be the authorized signator. I kind of volunteered since I'm around when those things come in. Russell said it was okay with him, but, you know, I'm gonna leave that up to you guys.
I'll make a motion that the manager is signatory
I'll
of the Governor's
second.
Crime Prevention.
I'll second it.
And we have a new one going in very soon, right?
Yeah, I think it's been approved, so it's.
Okay, so it's another $25,000 that comes, no match, to
I
police
think we've got
department for
that
equipment.
grant, this makes the fifth or sixth one we've got, and those are 25,000 apiece and no match for equipment for the
Yeah.
department. So-
Randall does a really good job
Randall
writing
does a good
those.
job.
Appreciate him, the time he takes to do those. Just a reminder, January 10th, 10 a.m., we're gonna have our water and sewer project workshop, just to get everybody up to speed on where we're at, what we've got going, what's coming down the pipe, literally.
Is
And
that where you
Yeah,
get, okay.
yeah, Chad's really good at scheduling.
I know he is, I just wanted to double check.
Will that be here or up at the other?
that will be, can we say, is it here? It's in that room right in there, yeah, it is. Okay, and the last thing I'll have is the tax report. I think y'all got a copy of it. Y'all got a copy of it, end of this week, current year taxes become delinquent, and penalties and interest start accruing. So if you know anybody that needs to pay their taxes, don't get it done by the end of the week. We're in really good shape, actually, to only be $15,000 in delinquency between the years of 2011 and 2020. So that's a lot of years, and
That's amazing.
a very small amount of money that's still left outstanding, and most of it is actually personal property from businesses that have closed and moved on, and that sort of thing. Some people have become deceased. Currently, we're at a 74% collection rate on this year's taxes, but that'll improve greatly this next week, and then we'll move on with whatever collection methods we have to keep that. Try to beat that 98% rate, but that was good news. That's all I have.
Well, thank you, Heather. All right, Mr. Shane Dale, Public Works, doesn't look like you got much.
I really don't have anything other than we did get the ERP, which is the Emergency Response Plan, certified with the EPA, and the SWRRP, which is the Source Water Risk and Resilience Plan, certified with the state before the deadline and everything. So all that's good to go. And that's pretty much what I have.
Thanks, Shane. Miss Leslie?
Okay, well, we've spent a lot of time talking about me tonight, but, I sent out the bids versus actual. And I forgot to send out the overtime report to you. I just got it done but I need to, update our bank accounts. I need a motion to close Meadow Road and the old Peterson account, and to open a new CDBGI account for this new West Main Interceptor.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Can I have just a little bit of history of what closed Meadow Road means?
Yeah, well, we got a grant, well, we got 3 grants, yeah, through the CDBGI before, well, no, not 3, but
I didn't know what all that meant.
yeah, we had got a Peterson, we had got a grant for the Peterson project, we had got a grant for the OMC project. And so it's just a whole lot cleaner to actually open them, and so now they're done, and we just need to close them out. And then,
Now go ahead.
yeah, sorry.
She actually opens up separate accounts for each project.
Got it. Y'all gotta get me up to speed here.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you get that, Chad?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, is that all you have, Lisa?
Yep, that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Howe, Fire Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, our operations report you do have before you there, and the call volume has stayed pretty much the same. So we'll average about 30 to 35 calls most every month, and we stay pretty close to that. We did finish out the year with 408 calls for the year, so we're now starting a new count beginning this month. We're still in heating season, so most of our calls have been heat related and fire alarm related at this time of year. The other thing I'd like to report to you on is I got a little bit of good news today. I got notified by the Office of State Fire Marshal today. Shirley Laughlin sent me an email that said that Burnsville Fire Department was eligible for a $10,000 COVID-19 grant. And so I kind of took me back a little bit, so I called April Redwood, who is the Western Regional person with the Department of Insurance, and asked her what was going on. She said evidently she didn't really know. She'd call and find out, so she called me back and said evidently the state had given out some COVID money and they were trying to get rid of it. So they opened that up, so all you have to do is send out an application similar to the state grant, and they'll send you $10,000. And obviously, I don't think there's any requirements or anything for it other than to apply for it. So I did start that application today, and hopefully we'll have that finished very soon. It's got until like the middle of June, I think, to apply to get it. That was a little bit of good news. The only stipulation was it had to be used for equipment dealing with some of the COVID issues we've dealt with for the last year or two. So it'll have to be something along those lines, but no real guidance with it. So
Have you or Heather either one heard back on that money?
I have not heard a word from them. I mailed the packet to DOT and with all the things they asked for, and really that was to get $25,000 toward the pay zoom at the fire department, which they first denied us, and then we asked us to send the information, and they would send it down, which I did send to them, and we haven't heard back from them about helping with that payment over there, but I don't know where that stands.
Everything else with the building good?
Everything's good. A few minor things have popped up, but nothing that we haven't been able to handle with the contractors and subs.
Has Shane went to the old building? Has Shane went to the old building?
Some of the guys, some of the boys have kind of moved upstairs and made my.
No, I mean, with the whistle blows. With the whistle blows.
Yes, I've had.
We've had some issues trying to figure out if we need to go on by or stop. It's working all right, I think.
History's hard to repeat.
It is. It's worse for me at night.
This might be a little old since I'm a month behind, but for myself, I take a lot of pride in seeing that new building go up. And I know a lot of people have worked a lot of hours through the last 5 years or so on that. And Russell and I both missed the open house, so I would like to have another.
Well, we're planning an open house. That was just a ribbon cutting that.
Oh, yeah.
I think that.
I was laying in the hospital bed thinking about you.
Yeah, we're planning to have a big throwdown party with an open house. Like, maybe have a few snacks.
Use that kitchen.
Use that new kitchen.
but I kinda wanna wait till the weather's a little.
Oh, yeah, I understand fully.
So, we'll get something out of it.
Thank you, Niles. Chief Buchanan.
Police department was up after our activity logs for the month, and I guess our yearly totals on there as well. We made it through the holidays, and as far as I know, everything has been relatively calm and quiet for the last month or so with the department within town. I'll move on to the zoning code enforcement, unless anybody has any police department related questions, I can move on to the next section. We have a large planning board agenda for Tuesday, is that right, Tuesday? For Tuesday night's planning board meeting. Several things on the agenda, some things you all have sent to them. The subdivision ordinance will be considered by them for them to make a recommendation back to you all. With any luck, that'll be coming up the next board, we said a hearing at the next board meeting, and it'll be considered after that. We also have two text amendment, one's a map amendment, one's a text amendment to the zoning ordinance that they will be considering and making recommendations. So all those will be coming back to you all at some point in the future for your consideration. So a fairly large agenda for there. There's still a few other big projects out there that are, I think a lot of them are within the January months have not pushed forward about pushing for their zoning paperwork, but I'm expecting some of that pretty soon for some of these projects on the west end of town especially. So I'd say those will be coming up as the weather starts to move on toward the spring months. I expect a lot more projects then. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Corbin.
So far, everything's going good. This new year, we have 16 events planned for January right now. I believe next year we're looking about 17 to 18 events. Currently, we have 5 groups that are consistent renters, meaning they rent once a month or more than once a month. We usually have 6, but one of them will postpone until March. We had a couple days, get some stuff back into order, just work on the building, get a few things caught back up, cleaning wise and a little maintenance. Got most of that done, we're working on some painting right now, but everything's going good so far. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I want to recognize Corbin over the holidays painted in Town Hall, the stairwell coming up, and it looks really good. I appreciate that. I forgot to mention it to you the other day, but it really looks great, and you did good work. Come in on holiday time and do that, so, yeah.
Thank you, Corbin. Is that all you got?
That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the council members' reports. I wanted to talk with just a little bit. It's nothing to take action on at all tonight, maybe not even next month, but I just wanted to talk to the board about a couple of things I've been thinking about. So, Randy, to get you up to speed, Appalachian State, I guess we contracted with them, right? We have contracted with Appalachian State to look into the old fire station.
Right.
And they've done a phenomenal job thus far. They have came and gave one presentation, and I would ask the board to try to come to the next one because what they've done is phenomenal. I got to go along with Heather and Brian and Shane and Chad. But I just kind of got to thinking, and that was about the time that Tom Story passed away, and you know, Tom was very instrumental in the town and public works. I think he was there with the town for 40 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the number that I've heard. You know, I just got to thinking as we move forward with that project, you know, maybe doing some of that in Tom's name. And again, I want the board to think about this and come back, and we'll discuss it further at another meeting. But you know, as I was looking over the agenda, I got to thinking. I was like, well, you know, a part of that's is going to be the police station, is the hopes, you know, the upstairs, the old fire department is gonna be the police station and administrative part of that. And, you know, I couldn't help but think about my old friend, Gene Higgins, you know, I mean, Gene was obviously he's a lifelong friend, I thought of him like a father, but, you know, maybe doing something with him there, and then it kind of dawned on me, well, you know, how do you weigh what, you know, who's done what for the town? And I would never want to leave anybody short, but, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, Ruth Banks is what she's done for the town, and you know, other people, you know, Danny's done a lot for the town.
Charlie Hensley.
You know what I'm saying?
Charlie.
I'd just like the board to kind of think about that moving forward. Obviously, if we do something with this building, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a long time, but, I would just like the board to think about it, and let's all kind of come up with ideas together on maybe doing some type of memorial in some of these people's names, and just see how the best way to go about that would be. But I think definitely, you know, something needs to be done. I'd like for everybody's input to.
Maybe a plaque in memory of, or, you know, everything that you mentioned was very instrumental.
Well, they were. I
in
know
the town,
Niles has,
so.
at the fire department, I believe, that there's a plaque with all the members of the fire department, and, you know, and again, that's what I'm saying. Just because that you were, you know, retired from the fire department for 30 years, that doesn't make you any different than somebody that was an employee with the town for 30 years. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to I would never cut anyone short. But I think something needs to be done. And, I'd like to incorporate it into that building some way. Obviously, we've got a lot of time, but I'd like for everyone to kind of start thinking about that.
Did you throw it out there, the idea of the possibility of options with the App State students? Like maybe they've done something like that before?
I did not.
Maybe we could do that, just to,
Actually, about the time it was that day.
Yeah.
That day that they come is the day that Tom actually passed away.
Yeah, it was.
And, because, yeah, we went to the funeral, during intermission, actually, but, that may be something, you know, when are they scheduled to come back, Heather?
I don't know, I need to, and I guess they're not back on campus until the 10th. So I need to shoot Jason an email this week and see what's the next step. I know he had talked to me about they were gonna be, incorporating their interior design team in this semester to come up with a more, I guess, hard and fast concept.
But what they done, Randy and Bill, in a very, very short amount of time was amazing.
Each and every student in it's called the IDEX lab, and each and every student did a conceptual design of the building, top and bottom, interior, exterior.
They came over one time, and I think, right?
Yeah, once, and I think maybe some of the grad students
Come back, you know, took measurements and that sort of thing, and, I mean, it was amazing what they done, and there was 20 of them, correct?
19 or 20.
Yeah.
We done 10, and then 10 more, but.
That sounds about right.
And, it was amazing what they've done, and again, we've got to look at where we're gonna get funding for this, and it is down the road, but they will get into that with us as far as cost analysis and all those.
I mean, in the end, it works similar to what they did with the farmer's market, and they will bring us a set of ready-to-go construction plans and a cost list and everything, and, you know, the deal with the farmer's market, with the county, they're actually gonna build it, and the county will just pay for the materials, but the students will actually provide a lot of the labor. Some of the trades, like the electrical and plumbing and stuff, will have to be
But
set up.
just the design part of it is a tremendous cost savings. I mean,
Yeah.
we're contracted with them for $5,000 a semester, is that correct?
For 4 semesters.
For 4 semester, I mean, $20,000. you know, you're not gonna get an engineer to walk in over there for $20,000, so, it's very, from a cost standpoint, it's a very good deal. But anyway, not getting off the subject, but, just wanted to kind of throw that out there, and let's talk about it in the future.
I mean, if Heather has any conversation with them, maybe just a section for someone, like Gene's Road or whatever,
Right.
that kind of thing.
We'll talk to them about that we want to think about some naming opportunities.
Yeah.
All right, Randy Ollis.
Uh-oh.
You're up next.
I'm gonna go a little bit off the agenda and mention the Rotary Club and the passing of Chris Scott. While we're kind of on this thing, I'd like to see something done for her, because that scar was beautiful. I don't know, resolution maybe, or something along those lines. And again, you can't pick everybody out of the Rotary Club, but just maybe a proclamation for them and mention her in it, because it was well done. My work schedule, what happens is one end of it goes left, one end of it goes right. And so Chad and I went through the months, and February's good, March is good, April I'm on duty, May's good, that's Cinco de Mayo. June is good, July I'm on duty, August is good, September I'm on duty.
We don't make July, do we?
Typically, well, we met last year for some reason.
It's like the 7th,
Yeah,
it's like the
typically
7th, is it?
Typically, we don't.
Yeah,
We may have 2 meetings in June, one, you know, to pass
Yeah,
the budget.
budget time.
But we try to get the budget, last year we were able to get the budget done by the first June meeting,
Yeah.
so that's our goal.
So my question, you know, my first time being here is, number one, if I have to miss it, I can miss it. But if we can reschedule it, is that a conflict with everybody else that comes and the rest of the council and that kind of thing? I mean, we can leave it to first Thursday, and if I can get somebody to swap a day at work, I will, and if I can't, I can't. So I don't know.
We're here,
Yeah.
whatever, I think, and it
What
looks like
about
April's the
statutorily?
first
I mean, does it,
Well, we would just have to notice it as a special
Okay.
meeting as opposed to our regular meeting.
Right.
And so we'd have to notice it. But, you know, the bigger thing is, you know, having this space for as long as until we can get that lift put in.
You would have to identify dates, go by the town center schedule, and
Right,
figure out
Make
days
sure
that
they
work
didn't
for
have
everybody.
somebody.
right.
because right now, you kind of keep that first Thursday blocked off, except this one, right?
So,
I mean, I'm honestly fine with whatever. I can be open with Judy, Bill, Denise. What's your thoughts on it? I mean,
Well, I guess, maybe you could come up with the exact amount of months
Yeah.
that's gonna
Well,
be affected.
It's
and
like 4.
4.
Yeah, the first one's April. May's good. June is good, depending on what happens. July's the 7th, whether or not that hits the week of the 4th, I guess. August is good. September, I gotta work. October's good. November's good. And December, the first day of December is the first Thursday, and I got duty. So whatever those
so
are.
there's 3, excluding July.
Yeah.
You think there's a possibility that somebody might switch?
Well, I can ask people, you know,
Do you think if once we got closer to them,
yeah.
find out, and then if we need to, start reaching out to everybody and try to find a date that might work?
Yeah, it's probably easier for me probably if we say we're gonna keep it on a Thursday and just let me try to deal with it. Cause I mean, I know you got everybody else's schedule and I don't wanna mess that up.
And we live stream and could WebEx you in too.
Yeah, that probably won't float me
Okay.
working. I'm busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might not work. So I'll try to swap them for what I'll do. Let's just leave it like it is.
Well, you could, I mean, you could possibly come on duty, if you got a call, you just got a call. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
once you hear, but.
clear that with Clay, and when we were a mission, that was like a golden no-no.
Right, but maybe,
So
maybe
different
now
now.
that it's county, that might be acceptable.
Yeah, I can see Clay and Lynn and say, hey, if I get caught, can I come to the meeting? We'll see. I'll try to swap, it'll be easy.
Okay.
Just let us know, we'll work around whatever we have to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other council members have anything?
I would like to talk about the meeting at the High Country Council of Government. And this is what the main thing they talked about, and I got the email, and it says, as discussed during the recent High Country Council of Government Executive Board meeting, the state is currently studying the workforce development regions and will use the outcome of the study expected February 9th to make recommendations on aligning and potentially consolidating the consolidating the state's workforce and development boards, and a follow-up to that discussion. You all regions requested a draft resolution for each local government to consider in support of retaining the High Country's existing 7-county workforce area. And they talked like if they did do the consolidation, that we of the western part would not, you know, have as much say into it, and that it would be like people maybe in Hickory making decisions for us, and they said it's very important, and after, if we could get that in by the 9th, and Julie sent a copy of the resolution.
6th day.
We can put that on the agenda for the 3rd. I had some discussion.
Yeah, I
with the
didn't
county
fully
manager about it this morning.
fully understand it, but they thought it was very important that we did that.
It's just for that one, I guess, committee or area, workforce development. I think there's 17 different boards in the state. And they're talking about doing some consolidation, and the state is doing a study to look at what that would look like. And it might realign us. We wouldn't be necessarily with our, well, we've always been our high country grouping of counties, if that were the case. So I think all the counties, well, a lot of counties are going to be sending in these resolutions. So we'll get that worked up and on the February agenda so that y'all can vote on it and get it in. I think the study comes out the 9th, and then
Study
it
comes out
goes to
the
the
9th.
General Assembly. They've got to make a
Yeah.
decision, you know. So I think everybody just wanted to let their, I believe that our delegation in Raleigh is opposed to making any changes. So, but we just need to let them know that we're with them on that. I don't think we pair up.
So Western North Carolina's gonna be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hickory is in Western North Carolina, but I think it's pairing, and I'm not ready to know that much about the workforce development board and what they do, but it's, you know, pairing up.
Yeah, they did that with state EMS.
I
They
didn't
moved
under-
everything out of the mountains to Hickory.
Yeah.
So
I didn't
that's
understand that fully either, but they talked like that the Hickory district would be making decisions, or,
Right.
Yeah, the money will stop at Hickory.
Yeah, that's what you run into.
So it didn't sound like it was a good deal for us.
No, it never is.
All right, thank you, Bill. Judy, Denise, you guys have anything?
Tonight.
All right. Updates from advisory boards and nonprofits. Jamie's not here.
He had a meeting,
He had the EDC
Yeah.
meeting tonight.
which I missed.
Oh,
Yeah.
blame Corbin.
It's all right,
I
Corbin.
guess Christie's at that meeting too, because she's not here either.
Yeah. No, she's never
Bunny,
had
do you
that
want to
one,
stand
so-
up for anybody? You put Jamie or Christie?
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying being part of the audience this time.
We're glad to have
I
you.
do like the, I was really interested in the, that new, concept of having the open
Stream.
Mhm.
stream. I was gonna say open drain, but, yeah, I like that.
So you don't have anything to report from either one of those heads or they?
No, I don't.
No.
Okay. All right, there's no closed session tonight, correct? And, next meetings, of course, we got the water and sewer project workshop on the 10th at 10 a.m. It's gonna be in that room. And the next regular business meeting will be on February the 3rd in here. So there's no other business, so I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody.